Hello, everybody. We're back in our segment here with our great friends, Daniel Bolwan and Adam Susnick. Finally, the action has started because we have our good friend, and I'm going to go from end to front, our good friend Meyer Davidoff, who basked us in his glory and attendance in our Wall Street event. We appreciate Meyer and his great company,
Invictus Pharmacy.
I apologize. It's just a tongue twister for me a little bit.
He's also, I think, formally nominated as best looking Bukharian guy out there. I don't know how he did it. He might have paid the judges.
Well, he
might have paid the judges off. I don't know, but he won.
He's in negotiation with Calvin Klein.
That's true. That's true.
We're trying to negotiate.
Welcome, Meyer.
And then we have our great friend, Michael Vostok, who has founded BTP, Bukharian Group Chat, of over 30,000 active individuals, and we appreciate his availability for us to use his chat, use his platform to promote our projects and our goals. He never said, by the way, not Meyer, not Michael, not Adam, and not even Daniel has ever said no to me. They always say, Rabbi, what's the right word? Let's go.
He sent me a bill while you were turning the other way.
Oh,
whatever you need, Rabbi.
I appreciate you guys. And this is all for a good cause. The BJPOST digital call center. We are here to promote it, to establish it, to make it happen. $18 doesn't go far. Just go to makorim.com, donate $18 or whatever you can donate to our cause. It will help it. This event is not the end of our fundraiser. Our goal is to have an ability to support the cause of helping people in a better, healthy wellness, mental health, physical health. And as Daniel already mentioned before, with his great organization to cure cancer, and they have done great endeavors and getting us closer to that cure and that treatment that we all need for our families and friends. In the last segment, I just wanted to say, I don't want to make it political, but if you remember, Michael Jordan said, Republicans buy sneakers too. So I want to say, whether you're Democrat, whether you're Republican, whether you're independent, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Gentile, whatever you are, right? Whether you're Christian, whether you're Catholic, whatever denomination you are, we all have cancer within our family members. We all suffer the pains of that demon that we all call cancer. And we all suffer from that issue where we have with drug overdose and fentanyl overdose. So without further ado, I just want to throw it out there. And I'm going to throw first question to Meyer. You're in the drug business. We're talking about drugs and you're in the drug.
Legal.
We're legal, yes.
We're legal, the legal drug business, right?
Prior to that, it's questionable, but
right.
2017, we've been legal, yes.
So as an advocate for the drug industry, what do you think are the benefits of drugs in general? What are the obviously you need to take drugs to cure yourself. We have the legal drugs, the things that are prescribed drugs that are available.
Yeah.
What is your take on the whole fentanyl case? How do we prevent people who are taking medication not to get overdosed with that medication?
I mean, there's a lot of topics there to discuss, but I want to say, by starting off with the following, that, we see a lot of, on social media nowadays, a lot of fake news, a lot of propaganda news, a lot of, just ill-advised news regarding drugs, regarding developments, regarding conspiracy theories on drugs, how Big Pharma is a big boogeyman that's trying to kill all of us. And if we go by that logic, if Big Pharma is trying to kill us all, then I don't have any clients to deal with. So we have to sort of take it back a step a little bit and really understand the history of drugs, history of medicine, developments that were made in the last, I would say, 100 years alone that really took our society, at least Western society, to that next level. Why, we're living longer today as opposed to 200 years ago. So I want to say that even though I'm not being paid by Big Pharma, but there are, we should be skeptic, absolutely, of certain drugs, certain regimens, but we shouldn't necessarily be just blatantly labeling everything as harmful for us. That's prescribed by our doctors, prescribed by our health system. So, I mean, if we look back 100 years ago, average lifespan was, I think, up to 55, 60 years old tops. And with progression, I mean, Alexander Fleming was given the Nobel Peace Prize for penicillin. That's Big Pharma. It was Big Pharma at some point, so it became generic and widely available globally. And we have to understand that the intent of Big Pharma is a overall net positive intent. There's definitely a lot of bad players within the pharmaceutical industry that could that sometimes push on the wrong buttons, that try to do things for very selfish gains, such as you see pharma sales reps disclosing a lot of things where they want to juice up their sales, they want to juice up their numbers. But I think that being in the industry, I went to pharmacy school for 7 years. I studied bio. I love chemistry. I did a great amount of studying in those years. And I understood that it's not necessarily that Big Pharma is the culprit. I think we're living in a very broken system where we could definitely improve it, along with with other types of other divisions or other industries as well. But healthcare, specifically in the United States, could definitely be improved. And we should be, the more knowledge that we gain and the more we sort of arm ourselves with facts regarding medicine, I think the better it does for us and for the greater society.
Wow.
I got to say, I'm so sorry. I got to say something.
Yeah, go. I mean,
I
I'm
had
going
to
to
say
say questions. Go ahead.
I was holding my
one discourse.
I mean, you're a great spokesperson for, let's say, Pfizer. But when these big guys, when they literally collab, there's no point. There's no break. They don't give you, they're not going to give you medicine for, let's say, for cancer, for any type of cancer, to suppress, like the suppressants. There's a lot of suppressants now, right? Everybody is not in the cure business. Everybody is in therapy business, because therapy brings money. It's all therapy.
Right, but
They're not going to fix you. They're going to make you feel better until the end.
So let me add to that. I'll sort of push back on that. I think that Big Pharma, just like anything else in our society, in the capitalistic society, they're there for profits. There are companies that are basically not-for-profit. I think Roche is a not-for-profit organization. There's other pharmaceutical companies, but I'll give you a good example. This is when I was in school in 2010. I believe Gilead discovered a treatment for hepatitis C, and this was a treatment to cure Hep C.
Right.
Prior to Gilead, people were going for PEG interferon therapy, very painful therapy. They were throwing up. Some people wouldn't tolerate it, and it wouldn't treat Hep C. So people that would be, say, abusing needles, or they would be in a third world country, you would have high rates of hepatitis C prevailing up until 2010. And so a lot of commotion was around Gilead's price tag for the drug, which was usually, I believe, it was a 4-week to 6-week therapy. It costed probably over 6 figures. I would say $120,000 per treatment, but you got treated. And what ended up happening is the pushback that Gilead said, hey, we're treating you guys, so we're saving a lot of money for health insurance companies, for payers, to sort of provide better quality of living for the patient once you treat hepatitis C, because you're now reducing the amount of comorbidities, you're reducing the amount of complex illnesses that could occur later on in a person's life by sort of removing that illness out of the equation overall. So I think if you would look at it as a whole, they did the right thing. But simultaneously, their stock after, I think, 2016, 2017 plummeted because the sales, they sort of they did their thing, and they pretty much lost out.
Mismanagement.
I mean, you could sort of echo and say that, yeah, that's my point. That's the point I'm trying to make. But
what's your point, Mayor? I'm just kidding, that.
You're get to the point, Adam. Get to the point, Adam.
Adam, you guys, didn't you have a podcast on that? But and David, didn't you guys have a podcast on that?
On what exactly?
On pharma.
We've talked about this many
Especially
times.
after the shooting.
Of course. Well, what it's called Luigi Mangini, whether it's called whether we discussed what's going on with Big Pharma. We've had conversations with RFK. The United States is.
How is it? You met a person.
Again, let's stay on topic. We'll get to RFK. Yeah, RFK is transforming what we eat and how we live in America today. But my question is for Meyer, because I want you to explain what you do to the audience that's watching. But here's my question. So I think I've learned United States and New Zealand are one of 2 countries that pharmaceuticals are allowed to advertise on TV.
Direct to consumer, yeah.
Trump, last week, he gave a press conference. You got to love about Trump. He goes, so I'm talking to a friend. He's in Europe and he was going to get the fat shot. And he goes, it's not working. You know this guy. He's a great guy. He's a fat loser, but he's a billionaire. He's amazing. You know him. I love him. He's disgusting. He's sloppy. He's super successful. Like the way that he's able to just like neg you, but also compliment you. And he goes, in America, it costs me $1,800, but here in Europe, it's $18. Some ridiculous disparity in the numbers. Why? You know, the whole conversation in the United States is healthcare a right? Is it a privilege? Should you pay for it? Is it a one party system, one payer, single payer? What should we do with that? Healthcare for all, universal healthcare. This is a whole conversation that's happening in America. As someone who's obviously become very successful in the pharma business, you said there's some bad actors here. You also said there's ways to fix it. If you were doing for the greatest benefit, for the greatest good of society, forget about being a capitalist and just making America healthy, what are the one or two things that you would implement for sure to make America healthy again?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of things, but what comes to mind, and we hear this a lot on at least the hot topics around healthcare, is the universal healthcare, that we should all have, that healthcare is a privilege. It's a right. It's not a privilege. And, you start to compare the healthcare systems in other countries. And if you see what's happening in other countries, yes, they have free healthcare. It's accessible to everybody, but the quality of care is not there. And what ends up happening, our neighbors to the north in Canada, they wait in line for 6 months to get an imaging scan. Trump said that let's say that fat pill in London costs about $90. It costs over $1,000 here. And the argument that a lot of people make is, well, pharma spends a lot of money on R&D, on research, and that they sort of bake that into the price of in the United States market in order to basically justify the means for the R&D. So I personally think that you could, if Pfizer moves their headquarters to Ireland and wants to sort of be headquartered in Ireland, they could do their R&D in Ireland. They could do their R&D globally if they wanted to. I sort of push back on the fact that, it shouldn't be such a huge price tag that the American customer should pay to sort of subsidize the rest of the world. I think that we should definitely have at least a 30-40% reduction in the cost of spending when it comes to pharmaceutical drugs. And a lot of people don't realize this, but there's this sort of a shady middleman, specifically in the pharmaceutical industry, that not a lot of people know about, and it's called the pharmacy benefit manager. It consists of 3 companies today that pretty much have a hold, a monopoly on the drug reimbursement, and that's CVS Caremark, it's Express Scripts, it's Optum, which actually is a subsidiary of United Healthcare, the company where that CEO was shot.
There we go.
So there's definitely a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of bad players in the system that don't need to be there. And I think why we're different, my company's different, is that we sort of cut out that middleman. We don't necessarily deal with PBMs. We go directly to the consumer. We buy directly from the manufacturer. We leverage our negotiating practices and just by buying directly from manufacturers, and therefore we cut out a lot of the sort of unnecessary middlemen that are involved in the supply chain. And by doing that, you're guaranteeing a reduction in costs for your patients. So Americans could pay on average anywhere between, I would say, 40 to 60% off on drugs just by going directly through our pharmacy. And we don't have a special motive of any sort. I think that if the industry wakes up and sort of realizes that these PBMs are pretty much inflating drugs for the last 30, 40 years since their inception, you could pretty much see a drastic reduction in pharmaceutical spending across the board. And that would be my message to Trump. I would say that, focus more on the middlemen rather than the innovators. Let pharma innovate, let pharma do what they want to do. If they're a business, let them earn their money, but also sort of rein in the PBMs and the sort of unnecessary players that are in the game.
So, a quick follow-up. Yeah, because I remember that when we had dinner, you were telling me about the PBM.
Yeah.
And I've saw CVS, Walgreens, Duane Reade. What in Atlanta? What do you guys use as a pharmacy?
Publix.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I learned about this, but what we've learned of the last decade or so is the concept of disruption. We're doing YouTube right now. We don't need legacy media to get our voice out there. Whether it's in the financial markets, Bitcoin, crypto, you don't need to go through the typical banks anymore. Politicians, they don't necessarily need to go play the typical game. They can speak directly to the public. How can disruption actually be implemented in the healthcare or sick care world? Because it still seems that as much as there's ranting and raving and the United Healthcare and disruption, Luigi Mangione, people don't fully understand how this all works. If you try and go and get health insurance and like, well, what is your premiums and what is your deductible and what is the benefits? Dude, you got to go take a calculus class just to figure out what the hell it is.
Right.
And the average person is like, dude, I just don't want to get sick. And if I do get sick, I just want to have the benefits. How would you alleviate and disrupt what's going on in the industry?
I mean, the most important thing is to educate your consumer. You got to always, what we do in our pharmacies, and we've done this from day one. I started off working as a stock boy in a pharmacy since 16 years old. So I definitely see the confusion that goes on among the population. People don't know the difference between a copay and a co-insurance. They don't know what's a deductible. They don't know if they even have insurance at times. So a lot of times it requires us as healthcare providers to inform, to empower the patient, to let them know that you have rights, you have certain protocols in place that you can sort of demand certain things from your insurance. And you, in a way, even though we all hate a Karen, you have to be Karen in order to get the care that you want in healthcare. I think that's important because these huge healthcare companies put you through, especially insurance companies, they put you through these endless labyrinths of just from one administrative help desk to another just to basically get coverage. And that what sort of really limits your healthcare because you're dependent on these health insurances to get coverage, whether it's for drugs or for a procedure. And they make it very hard for you purposely to make sure that you don't get covered or you're forced to pay out of pocket. So a lot of it is just informing, educating the public. I think this is a great sort of platform to do that. There's several different other podcasts where, educating the listeners, letting them know what are their options in whatever situation that life sort of throws at them.
Do you think Obamacare, looking back at it, it's been what?
Obamacare was a disaster.
Okay, that's what
Obamacare
it's been a
disaster for
net positive, net benefit.
I think Obamacare was a disaster. The only thing that I would sort of applaud Obamacare for doing was for insurance companies to not basically kick you out for pre-existing conditions. I think that was something that was a very humane thing to do. But I think as a whole, both for healthcare providers, for doctors, for pharmacies, the only thing you have to look at who sort of was empowered from Obamacare, and it's pretty much managed care groups. So it's all the health insurances, all the lobbyists that pretty much lobbied for this is the ones that won for Obamacare.
I don't know enough about Obamacare to say it's great or bad or horrible or amazing, but here's what I do know. In 2016, when Trump got elected, people were telling him, don't go after Obamacare. Start with infrastructure, start with anything. And Trump, you notice this time, he ain't even talking about Obamacare.
Right.
It's not even a conversation. It's tariffs, it's China, whatever it is. He learned, do you remember John McCain put his thumb down? They tried to go after Obamacare and it failed miserably. And it almost like torpedoed his administration.
Biden says a big effing deal also. So
what's that?
Biden said, I think he whispered to Obama, it's a big effing deal.
So exactly. So the Trump administration, what are they doing differently? Because they've come up with nothing unique.
I think
in the healthcare system.
He dropped the what's it called? He dropped the price tax.
For certain drugs,
he did an executive order to basically mandate, I think it's the favorite country policy, where basically everything or at least the top 20 drugs that are covered under Medicare and Medicaid that the government pays for, you're going to see a big deduction in spending, and it's going to sort of mirror what the next country is spending on the same drug. So what Trump is doing is, I think what they're doing best, it's basically they have this, I guess, universal approach right now towards tariffs, towards basically creating this America First environment. So he's just sort of, I think he's mirroring, he's in a way mirroring what he's doing on a global scale and sort of putting it now in every industry. So when it comes to drugs and the tariffs, I think what he's doing is basically just saying, hey, if London or if England or France is paying $60 for a Eliquis, we wanted to pay the same exact amount of money here in the United States, which I do welcome. But we have to understand also that drug pricing, even though it's a very hot topic in healthcare, and everyone always complains that drug costs only make up about, I think, 20% of overall healthcare spending in America. I think the majority of spending comes from hospitals, from procedures, and that's usually the lion's share of the spending that occurs. So 20% is just for pharmaceuticals, for drugs. It's not even the main thing that's costing us a lot of money in healthcare.
Okay.
Danny's on stage.
So many things to contribute, but I will start with this. If you want to fix a football game, do you fix it with the quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver, or the coach?
The referees.
The referees, my friend. That's who you get.
You know how many football games I've fixed?
You need one referee, and every time they score a touchdown, he goes, holding, number 42, and they bring the thing back in 10 more yards, and it changes the game. Here are the two biggest problems. Forget about healthcare. Forget about that's all sideshow compared to we treat the symptoms as a society. We do not treat the disease. There is far more value to have you for a company have to pay them for 40 years for the stuff that gets them through the night, the painkillers, the diabetes, insulin, the whatever it is, cancer treatment. It's all a business.
You're saying that treating the symptoms is bad, actually. Correct.
Treating symptoms is awful.
I agree.
I agree. You have to stabilize. I agree until you treat them for a cure, but we don't treat cures in this country. We don't. Very, very, very little balance-wise. Secondly, all of these drugs are based back to the Rockefeller era when they switched it over and went from holistic sources to find cures and find treatments to petroleum-based. And so while they made so here's a great example. My lovely pediatrician sits with me and tells me, we need to give your son this inoculation. And I said, why? He spends 98% of his time in our home by his mother and father. He's not going to be exposed to measles anywhere. Why would I give him that shot at 7 months or whatever the hell he was? And so well, you have to understand, the New England Journal of Medicine, those people and those sources are all funded by the same pharmaceutical companies that are selling you the inoculation. The journals that the doctors are making their decisions by, the research that's being done, that's being absolutely shifted to tell you a message that's not true. That's what Kennedy is going after right now. He's going after, hang on a second, who says? They said, and they're paid by the guy who owns the company. Same as what I just brought out, this app called Yucca that shows you what's in the colors and the dyes and the stuff that are in the products you're buying in the store. The same company that owns or is an arm of Kraft cheese that you're putting cancer in your mouth and eating. Anything in a bag pretty much is crap. Most of it. I mean, 90% of it is awful for you. So let's feed them the same crap for 40 years and wonder why that kid is going to have cancer. And guess what? The company that made all the money feeding you all that crap owns the insulin too. They complete the circle. They take you and go sicker, dying. And then they turn around and they pick up the tab on this and going, hey, you need this shot? We own that too.
So Danny, I agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I just think that it's not as planned as we think it is. Because even though I agree with you regarding the food and the vaccines and all that, I think that it's not as master planned as we tend to think it is. Because if you really think about it, I think that you mentioned the referee. I think that's a great analogy there, because I think we need to definitely change the referee. Hopefully it's Maha. Hopefully it's our Bobby Kennedy Jr. But I think that something has to come into play and say, hey, this is wrong. Get this out. Instead, they're sort of trying to compromise with all sides, with all stakeholders, and what ends up happening, we're just pushing the can down the road. That's all we're pretty much doing at this point. We're just pushing it down the road. We're saying, okay, we don't want to offend Big Pharma. We don't want to offend the food industry. We want to have everybody to be happy with what they have, but someone has to sort of pull the pants and say, hey, you can't do this anymore in the United States. You mentioned Kraft cheese. I mean, you go to Italy, you go to anywhere in Europe, you have a fraction of ingredients in your food compared to the United States. We don't have, I mean, the red dye, all that stuff. We don't have that in Europe the way it's permitted here. So someone has to sort of step up to the plate and say, hey, this is bad, and change up the rules a little bit. And let them continue to play based on your rules.
Look at what we're working on here. Look at what we're doing for the Baharian community. The secret is over. The secret of, does my kid shoot heroin? Let's talk about it. Does my kid use heroin? Does my kid use fentanyl and shoot it in their veins? How does it start? Now, I've done over 500 interventions in my career, 500. And I will tell you that the stereotypical story, and we're talking about, it knows no social boundaries. It has nothing to do with black, white, Jewish, Christian.
No.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And so I'll tell you, the quarterback, B+A student, injures his knee, and they throw 30 Percocet at this kid at 16. And he doesn't know every 6 hours, and it starts to feel good, and he feels a little funky, and he drinks with a couple of his friends. Or the girl gets the boyfriend and goes, what does your father do? He's a fireman? Go in the thing and see if any of it says Oxy anything in his cabinet. Grab me a couple of, crunch them up, they snort them. She swore to God she would never use a needle, and guess what? I had a girl who was second in her class in upstate New York. I flew in to do the intervention for my sister. The girl was on back page or whatever the magazine is, meeting guys in park lots, doing whatever she had to do to make more money to buy the drugs. Well, she was number one in her class 2 years before that, graduated number one in her class, valedictorian. So it is happening. It's happening right here in Queens. It's our kids. So we finally hurdled maybe we're not advertising it out there, but we're talking about it. So if that kid, because the advertising campaign done for the Oxy program was the greatest amount of money ever spent in marketing in prescription drug history. Now, I don't believe, I want to believe this. I don't believe they sat there and went, a lot of people are going to become drug addicts because of this. I think they probably didn't realize, they didn't test it long enough to realize how addictive it was, but they're paying out the ass for it now.
That's a great book, by the way, Cherie. It's about the Sackler family, and those are the masterminds. It's about three brothers. It's called House of Pain. I think I read that book in 3 days because it was just so engaging, and it tells you. And I mean, you're definitely on it. I think that they were doing it from a business perspective. And by the way, Sackler family is also responsible for Valium marketing as well as for OxyContin. Had a big play in this whole entire thing. And I think to an extent, just if you understand the family background and where they're sort of from, I think there was a little bit of a greed going on there. And they definitely did not care as much as, they did not care as much as we think they did.
Well, but my point, Meyer, is this. If we were to turn around and look at that and look at the outcome and deal with the reality of where it is now, why wouldn't we say you can't have this for more than 30 days? Or you can't have, you really shouldn't have it. Pain is necessary in life. Fear is necessary in life. When you get a surgery on your knee and you start walking and suddenly you go, you've done too much. Stop doing what you're doing. Your body's telling you you're going too far now. The surgery's you're not healed enough, whatever it is. Pain is something that's necessary to send that message to bring to your attention that, particularly when we're talking about what you need painkillers for a post-surgical and that kind of thing. But not putting limitations on them, not governing them more, and having people that do it for a living, that have the kind of information that you have, that step in and go, you shouldn't be able to get more than X amount over the first 10 days. And after that, wean them off, and they're done. And if they're not healed by then, they need something else done.
Absolutely. And I mean, we put a protocol in our pharmacies, actually, that we don't dispense Oxycontin or oxycodone for more than 3 days. That's sort of our company policy. I think we're more stricter than any pharmacy that is out there because we understand, we exactly echo your sentiment. If there's maybe, if you're going through a procedure, I understand first 2-3 days, the pain might be very unbearable. So you want to have maybe something in case of a serious emergency, but to have something that is highly addicting for longer than a 3-day period, I think it doesn't make any sense. You should follow your doctor. There's other remedies involved. Plus your body, I think it's the ultimate healer. I think if we think about what our body is, our body creates an inflammatory response in order to heal whatever scar tissue or whatever issues are wrong with it. So allowing your body to do what it's supposed to do and heal it, I think that's the ultimate way. Just time heals everything. And if you apply the same thing here, I think we would have less less of a problem nationwide, global.
Yeah, I'm going to have to interject. We're going to take a break and bring another guest in. Can we take a break for a few minutes? Thank you.
Play that movie.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.